Board. All right. It's a pleasure to be with you all. My name is Ebony Schamberger. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Divine Mercy University, and I'm here with Michelle Drennan. She's our Master's in Psychology Admissions Advisor, and we're excited to be talking about ways you can identify psychological distress before a crisis. And our Master's in Psychology program actually prepares people to avoid that crisis. And just before we get into it, we all are dealing with COVID, whether it be, work, your family, just going out to buy groceries. You're seeing how it's impacting people. People are afraid to stand close to each other. People are afraid to be in close proximity with their own family members. And we're here to discuss how you can decrease or reduce the amount of distress from these kind of crises, natural disasters, and health disasters that come about. Before we get started, I just want to allow you all to know what exactly psychological distress is. So psychological distress is defined as an unpleasant feeling or emotion that impacts someone's level of functioning in daily activities. So that could be anything from change of sleep habits, change of eating, change of actually engagement with others, which is isolation. And we have a few ways that you can learn that. So let's go ahead and jump on in. First, we'll just give an overview of what Divine Mercy University is since we're presenting this webinar today. I'm gonna kick it over to Michelle.
Good morning, everyone. I know that many of you are on here for various reasons. Some may have been affected personally by COVID. I know we've lost some of our students, and it's very tragic and sad, and some of their relatives. But one of the things that we love is to combine both the information on Divine Mercy University, because we teach it a little bit differently with a faith-based concept as well. So just as a historic perspective on who we are, and then we'll get into the COVID piece. We are an institute. We used to be called the Institute for the Psychological Sciences in the School of Counseling. And we are still then and now dedicated, even though that we're now named Divine Mercy University, to a scientific study of psychology and counseling with a Catholic Christian understanding of the person, marriage, and family. So that's who we are today, offering 3 programs from Divine Mercy University. So one of the things as people look at opportunities to pursue and get into educational pathways, they always want to make sure that they're looking at schools who have certain approvals and accreditations. We are very, very happy to be accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, one of the finest commissioning bodies there are. And then because we are located in the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, we are State Council of Higher Education for Virginia, American Psychological Association, and the Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards. So whether you're looking for a master's or not, it's good to know that the information that you're coming from today is built on us understanding the importance of mental health in all arenas.
All right. So first, we wanted to just get started with 2 videos, one that can relate to adults and mental health, and then also one that can relate to children. This video is kind of like the psychiatric distresses of people in America. So let me go ahead and play that.
If you are feeling overwhelmed, you are not alone.
More Americans than ever before are being stressed and depressed. News 12 Long Island's Christina Renaud tells us about the results of a new study.
Recovery is a journey.
Emily Sussman of Bayport lives with bipolar anxiety and seasonal affective disorders. She was diagnosed at 20 years old in her junior year of college.
Dr. Ginny Hines was one of my education professors and noticed the vast difference in my personality when I showed up for class dressed and answering questions and raising my hand, and when I showed up in pajamas.
Sussman is among the millions of Americans who have battled with mental illness. And in a new study, researchers from NYU Langone Medical Center say they found that more Americans than ever before are suffering from serious psychological distress, or SPD. 3.4% of the population, or more than 8.3 million adults. Now, the study not only looks at the number of Americans in psychological distress, it also points to the growing demand for mental health services and the country's inability to meet that demand.
Some of that slack is being picked up by the nursing profession and physicians' assistants and social workers and psychologists. But in terms of the prescribing, that's still, there's still a huge gap because of the lack of psychiatrists.
Sussman got into the field herself as a rehab and recovery practitioner here at the Association for Mental Health and Wellness, working to help those who are fighting a similar battle.
To be able to sit down with someone who says, I know where you've been. I've been there. I know the way out.
Now, researchers say based on the findings, they estimate millions of Americans are functioning in a state that will lead to a lower quality of life and life expectancy and may help explain the suicide rate. Stone?
All right, so that's our first video there. And then our second video is more to do with the climate in today's environment.
Is this like a harder time for kids that struggle with things like anxiety and depression?
It is. It really can be a harder time, and I'm noticing that as I'm working with my patients.
Sarah Jurstedt is a child psychologist at Children's Minnesota and still meeting with patients virtually. For those who've struggled with anxiety in the past, COVID-19 is adding an extra layer.
Kids with social anxiety, at the beginning, I think it felt like a little relief from pressure. But what I'm seeing is those kids aren't as skilled at reaching out and connecting to people virtually. And so they're getting more isolated. And just because you have social anxiety doesn't mean you don't want social connection.
And for kids who've been on a journey with depression, that isolation can make navigating day-to-day life more challenging.
You know, one of the things that we talk with kids and families about is if you have depression, it's so important to seek social support, engage in, daily activities and get out there. And it's hard to do during COVID-19.
Sarah says kids are having to get creative with their coping strategies. And parents, she says it's okay to talk to your kids about how they're feeling and let them see how you're being impacted by all of this too.
It's just a matter of being yourself. Don't try to be too tough or too strong for these kids or pretend that this is not a big deal. It is, and they'll recognize that you're feeling that too. And if you're honest about it, and if you can kind of model that for kids, it's actually really helpful.
Brian Pyatt, KARE 11 News.
Yeah, Chris, I think that piece of advice.
All right. So with these two videos, we just kind of wanted to show, the different ways that people can be better supported through the psychological distress that they're experiencing, adults and children. And sometimes it can be difficult to figure out why they're dealing with those issues or how to help them. But in today's webinar, we should be able to share a few ways that you can help people. So here is actually just some statistics that we were able to pull on mental health and the impact of COVID-19. It is shown to be existing among doctors. The doctors have said that the data says that US healthcare workers have contracted COVID-19. 300 have died, and an estimated 300 to 400 physicians died by suicide every year. And as a result of that, the healthcare workers who treated patients during the COVID-19 outbreak are showing levels of depression and anxiety ranging from 45 to 50%. So this is some research that is provided by the Journal of American Medical Association, I believe, JAMA. So we just wanted to share that information in addition to how COVID is impacting adults as it relates to sheltering in place and not sheltering in place. So there's been a major impact for sheltering in place is of course higher than those not in place, and the minor negative impact, which is still a part of the mental health distress that they're facing. And that's from the Kaiser Family Foundation.
Thank you, Ebony, for that great information. You know, it was 23 days that I went without seeing grandchildren. And this is Michelle Drennan, by the way, the other moderator. And I will tell you that I'm sure a lot of you are feeling that way as a consummate hugger and a person who has tremendous faith. And I'm aging in place because I work from home anyway. It's been a very interesting time. And I hear from my students that I interview to my current students that we hope that long after this is over, we're a kinder and gentler world. But remember that a lot of people are fragile, and there will be post-traumatic stress disorder. There will be people, as the video said, that are very isolated and are just having a very sad opportunity to not be able to commune with those they love, not being able to go to church for a long time, and now being there with spacious and not being able to give the sign of peace or whatever you do in your church. So how is COVID-19 impacting mental health? Well, it's been proven that longer durations of quarantine, more than 10 days, have been associated with post-traumatic stress symptoms because you begin to have avoidance behaviors, anger. The quarantine status has also been associated with frustration at poor, insufficient public health information, not having adequate supplies or access to health care, increased stigma and rejection from others, boredom, a sense of isolation from the world, and greater fears of infecting family members than those who are not quarantined, particularly a pregnant or parent of young children. And I know in many states right now, which whatever side of the fence you're on, it is now being mandated that you wear masks wherever you go. And maybe that will start to solve some of the problem. But that in itself is difficult. I went to the grocery store the other day, and I'm a consummate smiler, and I looked at this lady and I said, "Can you tell I'm smiling? Because I just don't know if people can tell that behind this mask." And she said, "Yes, we all smile with our eyes." So as down and out as this is, you know, do your best to be positive. But one of the things that I think is really sad is the financial loss. I talked to an HR person the other day, and she said, "Michelle, I laid off over 200 people, and I don't know if we'll be able to bring any of them back. So I'm so glad I'm in this program because it's giving me tools to work with." She says there's incredible serious distress, negative psychological symptoms, a lot of anger and anxiety. Young people who had their college all planned out, and now there may not be a monetary assistance from families because they've completely lost their source of income. And that's been shown to be particularly difficult and a risk factor for conflict, PTSD, and depression. And I think on one of the other slides Ebony had shared that it's very sad because we're seeing the hotlines for suicide and for spousal abuse and child abuse go through the roof. Because when those problems are there and they haven't been talked about, they become even more difficult when you're all, you know, cooped up in the house. And this particular information I just gave you, the source was the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and we are a VA-approved school as well. The next one is just a quick overview. If there are those of you on this call that have specific interests, and you know what, I do want to help. I do want to be an individual who impacts lives of these individuals or other people. So for a 36 semester credit hours over 2 years of study, you take 30 credit hours of psychology, 6 of which are in philosophy and theology. And what's really unique about our degree, as long as you have a bachelor's, you can try for acceptance. You only take one course, one subject every 8 weeks. So think about how you really drill down into subject matter. It does require that a person has at least 15 hours a week to independently study what they need, because the joy is you do not have to be on the computer at a specific time every day, but you will interface with other students, your professors. You'll do wonderful discussion points that you can't see anybody else's until you write yours, and write beautiful papers and help to get tools in your toolbox that will solve a lot of issues. When it says that it takes 2 years and 4 months to graduate, it's because it's very unique the way we're structured. get a little time off for good behavior. So you have almost a whole month off in the summer and a month off in the Christmas holidays. It is the only program that we offer that's 100% online. And there are some people who have tremendous fear of online education. And I will share with you that we have an absolutely marvelous orientation and people in student success and those who can get you on your stride. It's not for everybody, we know it's not, but yet there is a pathway to help people be successful. It's also very important that we share this particular degree is not a licensure track degree for aspiring mental health clinicians. You're not going to be hanging out a shingle and becoming a counselor. However, it does focus on all backgrounds, giving a solid practical human tool needed in psychology. We have nurses in this program, we have policemen, and of course we have people from churches, pastors, missionaries. It's a very lovely mix. And sometimes people will say to me, so what's the real difference in becoming a licensed counselor or taking a master's in psychology degree online? Well, a counselor fixes very broken people. And there are some individuals that's not what they want to do, like not becoming a nurse. A lot of people say, I think I'd love to become a nurse, but I can't see myself in that position. Whereas a master's in psychology, you're very much more the preventer. You find those individuals that are needing that opportunity and send them to various programs that they may need to be involved in, from drug addiction to marriage to all of that. But it is very interesting that a lot of the people that go into this degree already have that spark, that people naturally come to them and ask for their guidance and help them through specific arenas. So that's just a quick overview for those of you who may be looking at an opportunity to be a healer in this world.
All right, so we get the question often, what are the benefits of a master's in psychology program? And so Michelle and I, we came together and we made this list. And we actually want to also point out that this is actually a scientific degree. So it's not that you're just getting a master's in psychology. So you are getting scientific research and research-based information to train and help guide others who deal with psychological distress. So the first way that you can actually benefit is recognizing common psychological problems in human behavior. So that's pretty much recognizing when someone becomes isolated, recognizing if someone is having an eating disorder or dealing with alcohol abuse, or even marriage conflict that they're having. So that's one way. The second way is relating effectively to distressed individuals. Increasing your levels of empathy is very important in being a leader, being a coworker as well, and also just helping people, get the help that they need. Developing care and or education plans. So we're not going to go into much detail about it today, but you also are actually going to prepare a capstone as a part of this program. So the education plan would essentially be using your knowledge from the courses to create you can research something that you really want to implement. For instance, we have students who talk about being a missionary that becomes burned out and ways that you can deflect that in with the walk of ministry. You can also create plans to build foster homes and care institutions for those who really need it. So that's a part of the education plan. And you can also critically analyze and use relevant research. So the basis of the program is used with our Catholic Christian meta model of the person, which Michelle talked to on number 5. But it's really talking about, Alfred and Sigmund and all of the different psychologists who have come before, and actually putting into that research into everyday play.
And on number 5, and thank you for, I look at these as your return on investment. Every aspect of education is something that no one can ever take away from you. And the tools that you learn are used in a lifetime. They're used from the vantage point that you start using them every single day. You start using them in if you're married, your married life, your dating life, your community life, your church life, your employment life, because we teach in a way that it's all about diversity. There's a lot of talk these days about diversity, but if you don't have that foundation of understanding the whole human person and having the courage to ask questions, but then more importantly, know what to do with the answers, you become that person who's not just studying the psychological piece, but also that whole human person. Right now, there is a lot of emphasis on understanding the effects of crisis, disasters, and other trauma-causing events. Yes, we've had the yellow fever, we've had Ebola, we've had many other, polio, obviously, in this generation or 2 generations ago. But COVID has been one that popped up that no one was expecting, nor were we prepared for it. So after this is all over, while it's still going on, there are individuals that need to be learning and striving for helping all of those around them. And that's a real big part of a couple of the subjects that we have in the master's in psychology. And as Ebony shared, you always need to use statistical analysis to understand individuals and groups. Why is there so much heroin addiction? Why is there so much suicide? What are the preventative attitudes that are teamwork out there in the criminal justice and the behavioral field? You know, why are people losing their children, and why are addictions so prevalent? And a lot of times it's because people are losing their foundation. And so I think it's very important to realize the importance of why we teach psychology the way we do.
All right, so Michelle and I actually had a conversation yesterday about online classroom and have we studied online? And my answer was no, I have not. I've taken one philosophy class, but what makes our program unique from the class that I took was that our program is actually designed to be online. There are some students with COVID, they're studying online, but the platform or the instruction really isn't designed that way. So just wanted to share that, that the online classroom is the same atmosphere of full student participation and teachers through design. So that's chatting with people, you know, responding to their essays and actually being able to communicate with them through email. The fast turnaround with any of your professors and peers. That's pretty much being able to contact them when you need to. Our professors are across the United States, and we also have a professor who is international. So just want you to realize that they're actually used to this form of communication. Our next point is as far as the 5 sensory learning points. So everyone doesn't learn the same way, and we're all familiar with that. It may take you watching a video to understand, you know, what you're trying to learn in the classroom. Some people may read their book, highlight it back and forth, read it over and over. Some people may require the classroom participation, which is the online dialogues that you get to have, tutorials, and audiobooks. So the program actually is comprised of all of these different elements so that you're not just reading, you know, research papers, you're watching videos. Our professors are actually recording in various videos that you would watch throughout the matriculation of the program. And it's all through our platform called Canvas. If you've heard of Blackboard, it's similar to that. And you just log in whenever you want to study. It can be at 12 a.m. It could be at 2 p.m. It could be anytime that you want to complete your course assignments. And being that it's 24/7 access, that means you can study the weekend, during the daytime. If you're a mother, you can study when your children are asleep. So the online classroom has actually been very beneficial to a lot of people who are, you know, just starting their career or already among their career path.
I think this is always a really good time to remember that, as Ebony said, you can place a little question in that chat box. And often I like to go from the standpoint of, what have you always wanted to do when you grew up? Because the exciting thing about the Master's in Psychology, whether you're using it to enhance your current role or find a brand new role, I will tell you that if you look on any of the major job sites, whether it's Indeed.com or look at Glassdoor and punch in positions that require a master's, not always just in psychology, but if it is in psychology, it's a win-win. And I've had a personal experience with that in HR and with nursing. If I was going to hire somebody and I look at them as two identical candidates, and yet one of them's working on their master's or they're almost finished with their master's, I'm going to remind you that the job market is going to be very tough. And I think it's important to know that additional education and wisdom, you may already have a lot of wisdom, is very important. So this is just a benefit of some of the things that people go into, whether it's career vocational advisor. It's like the young woman who was on the video. A lot of times you can be an associate or assistant from rehab availability of jobs, academic student advisors, education management. Many people, I have 2 people right now that are in the class because I want to teach psychology at the junior college level. I have a lot of teachers in the program. Policemen who are facing some incredible situations and don't always have the tools to handle them. They're the most wonderful group of people in the world that protect us, just like our military. But hey, we all need new hints and tips to deal with an ever-changing society. Rehabilitation managers and coordinators and people who are in social service, not just, and I have many people who already have a social worker degree, but they come back and get the master's in psychology to really impact it. So I know we have a question on there that someone's having to leave, and don't forget that we will indeed send you additional information. Thank you for that courtesy. And then healthcare, oh my goodness, I have so many nurses and health project coordinators and people who are looking at being people who check people out of hospitals and make sure that mom can go home to the house if she's broken her leg. Also, like I said, HR, that's another very, very big area. But if you decide at some point that you want to have a discussion with me a little deeper, I have pages of different vocations that we can talk about based on what you're actually looking for. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you, Ebony. I think we can go on to the next one. And another side of those vocations are indeed individuals who are in the church, because obviously, I know I have a preacher from a Baptist preacher in ministry that's in the church, but we do have a lot of Catholic because we're a Catholic Christian foundation. But it's very interesting to see how many people want to go into our church and continue growing it. And that's been a little bit tough. So I think it's very important to realize that those individuals are very, called to do certain things, whether it's opening up their own business in crisis pregnancy or working in various ministries within our churches. And I think you were going to do this slide, right, Ebony?
Yes. So this is just a snapshot of who our professors are. I know if I was going back to school and when I did get my master's degree, I researched the faculty. Who am I going to be learning from? What are their specialties? What kind of experience do they have in the field? And we just wanted to highlight a few of our professors here. We have Anna Pecoraro, who has done a lot of research with those who have had addictions. We have Julia Clousley, who is actually now the program director, who is doing a lot of curriculum development and helping our students get through the program a little bit faster. So these are just a few people. Dr. Suzanne Holman, the dean of the program, she's been featured actually on EWTN and other media talking about COVID-19 and mental health. So they're all very dedicated. I just kind of picked a few people to go through, but here's also a quote from Dr. Pecoraro, who speaks on the program being unique in that we teach scientific psychology integrated with the Catholic Christian vision of the human person. We have students from all walks of life and from across the world join our program, including stay-at-home mothers, business executives, nonprofit leaders, missionaries, and parish lay leaders, entrepreneurs, first responders, as well as priests, deacons, and religious and retirees. So that's kind of a mouthful there, but she just wanted to give a snapshot of who's in our program and how it's integrated with the Catholic Christian meta model of the person. That's essentially the course material being based on virtues and just, wanting to make sure that you're looking at the person holistically, not just scientifically, but also based on, how they see the world and how they practice their faith.
Ebony's right. I manage the chat line every now and then. It's always very interesting to see that people are looking at the talent of our educators. And I think that's exciting because they're very invested in your success. And they always say to us, we learn from our students learn from us, but more importantly, they learn from each other because you bring a certain level of wisdom, authenticity, international, United States, very global. And so that's a very exciting opportunity for professors to teach. And one of my students said one time, how can a school that's only 20 years old attract the talent that you all have? And I said, well, it's because they've been with us, many of them since the beginning, and they're just very dedicated. So if an individual decides that they want to go forward and attend a master's program, all they'll have to have is a bachelor's. It does not have to be in psychology. It does have to have a certain GPA, obviously. But there are many ways to make grad school affordable. If it's something that's a new idea or an old idea that you've been kicking around for a while, be aware that not only does Divine Mercy University, for instance, for our August class that's coming up, have a $1,500 early application scholarship, but we also have other scholarships that you can write essays for. And then obviously not all programs are funded fully by scholarships. So people look at things like employer tuition reimbursement, which I know is not as big as it used to be, but we are VA approved. We do have recommendations. Sometimes I give people recommendations to touch bases with the Lions Club, with Catholic Charities, with women's groups, with Knights of Columbus to find other scholarships. And then we spread out anything that is not covered. If you have to take out a small loan, there are loan opportunities for master's program students. So I guess where there's a will, there's a way. But that's a very big part of making a decision is can I afford it? Can I manage it? And getting that return on the investment. So this is an important slide. The next one goes into how do I get accepted? The left-hand side is for a student who's a US citizen. The right-hand side is for that individual who's international. Again, I'll repeat that you just have to have a bachelor's degree. It does not have to be in psychology. It's a very simplistic application process requiring an official transcript, a simple application along with a personal statement and a resume. And then immediately getting in with financial aid packaging so you can really find out about the affordability. We take that same opportunity for our foreign-born students. Sometimes they have to take a TOEFL to make sure their English is good enough. We're not going to put a person in a program that is not going to help them be successful if they're struggling with that. And all that information goes into our admissions committee, and it's a fairly quick turnaround. So if there are those of you who say, I'm not doing anything else, I've been thinking about this for a long time, we do have a class that starts on August the 19th, and you have until July 17th to be able to secure that extra $1,500 scholarship. So that just gives you a little food for thought. So you are the first group on a webinar that have heard about a brand new opportunity that we have put forth in addition to our regular pathway for the degree. So I'm going to take just a second and explain to you how this works. There are those individuals who we speak with who say, oh wow, 2 years and 4 months, 28 months, that's a long time. even if I am taking one course per term, I need to get it faster, maybe for a promotion or for just the fact that you're in a hurry to get that education and that intellect. So we have just, as of yesterday, approved a program called FastTrack. One of them is completing the program in 16 months. Most of the time, you may be taking 2 courses per term and sometimes 1 course, but it's a substantial savings. And in the 20-month, it is up to 2 courses per term as well. And again, a fairly decent opportunity for some tuition reduction, and you still can qualify for the scholarships. I'm going to tell you that none of our master's program are a walk in the park. It takes a lot of ambition, it takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of time. But the joy of it is you come back at the end of the day having learned something you didn't know and really being in a robust educational environment. But the fast tracks are a little bit different than the folks who are going to go on the regular 2 years, 4 months. You would have to have a minimum of 3.0 GPA. You would have to be an individual who can pretty much give anywhere from 25 to 30 hours a week dedicated to getting through a master's program. It would be hard to work a full-time job with this. If an individual is in the clergy, it might be difficult. It might be a little bit better to spread that degree out over the 2 years and 4 months. But we're excited because we know that there are people out there that are in a hurry. They want to be able to save some money on top of the scholarships. As you can see, a substantial discount for the Fast Track A and B. And that would be something that we would interview you, just like we do with our regular program, to see if indeed you're a candidate. And we've already had, several people say they're interested. There are other schools that do Fast Track, and we thought, well, let's try this and see if there are individuals out there who have that kind of commitment. It would still take the same opportunity for admission and the same criteria as far as transcripts and personal statements and all of that. It's just a quicker way to get where you're going and with a little bit of a tuition reduction. So if you or someone in your life would be interested, we'd be happy to talk to them about any of those programs.
All right, so you've looked at those numbers, you probably stared at those $20,000 figures and was wondering, how in the world am I gonna afford that? So we thought that we just list out some scholarships that almost anyone is eligible for based on the criteria. And a lot of times people are not aware that there are not a limit on these scholarships. So we offer some of them to various people. So the Newman Scholarship being up to $5,000. You can look on our website at divinemercy.edu/financial aid to look at the actual criteria. But there's the Newman Scholarship, the Faith and Hope Scholarship, Patriot Scholarship, which is kind of self-explanatory, which is for veterans and family independence of veterans. The International Student Scholarship, which is for non-U.S. citizens, Diversity Scholarship, Grant and Aid Scholarship, and all of these are at least $1,000, and you're able to qualify for, is it 3 scholarships in addition, including the early admission scholarship?
You can actually write essays for 3. You will also just automatically get the $1,500 extra scholarship, which you don't have to write an essay for. But I will tell you this, and we kind of saved the best for last. Just a few days ago, the president of our organization, Father Charles, made a decision and an announcement that in 2020 and 2021, we will not raise the tuition at all. So everybody will be looked at based on their essays for scholarship, and we'll award as much as we can, but we want to touch the lives of many people by not raising the tuition. So it's different. There's about 20 other scholarships on that link that Ebony was talking to you about. And we talked to you about other agreements that we have with parishes and organizations. So finding a way to go is just sometimes digging and looking a little deeper. So those of you who would like to talk about it, again, we'll be happy to discuss that with you, because it's exciting that you can get some tuition scholarships off of each of those.
Yes. And just to go into our next slide, we actually have given away $1 million worth of scholarships last year. So for, you may be wondering, why should I pick this university over another one? It's because we're actually dedicated to providing the financial assistance and also integrating that Catholic Christian meta model of the person into our course curriculum. So those are just a few scholarships, as Michelle mentioned, and you can feel free to contact us if you have any questions. Michelle's information is mdrennan@divinemercy.edu, that being her email address, and her phone number is 540-441-0117. But if you prefer to call or text her at any time, her personal direct number is 859-414-5999. And we just want to sit here just for a few minutes. If anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, we want to make sure that we answer those questions. But with wrapping up this webinar, if you are aware of people or people come to you when they're dealing with psychological distress, whether it be through the COVID-19 pandemic or any other personal challenges that they may have throughout their lives, and you feel called to actually become someone who is able to help them during those challenging times, this is the degree that will help you get those tools in your toolbox, as Michelle often puts it that way. Michelle, did you have any other comments for everyone?
Just that we appreciate so much you coming on board for whatever reason you came. You're probably caring people who are, worried like we are about the world situation, but knowing that if we all stick together and help one another, it's exciting. And I don't even usually talk a great deal about costs, because I know in my heart that if you look at other master's programs, we are without a doubt one of the most reasonable, because it's very, very exciting from the standpoint that you do have so many directions to go. We do have a question, and bring that up again and we'll answer it. Appreciate that. And that person's question is, where can you work without licensure? What salaries are expected once degree is finished? Well, as I said earlier, this is Carmen. Carmen, I have a whole listing of different vocations. Our new program manager and myself went through a brainstorming thing, and I would love to send you a copy. I think we have your information via phone or email, and then I can give you some salary expectations through the U.S. government, some of the ones that we've had based upon former education and what you're in. So I don't have that in front of me, but I'd love to get that information to you, Carmen. So we can call, talk, email, and I'll get that information to you. But there are many places. For instance, mental health rehab places need assistance, people in school systems, people who are in HR, people who are just working in organizations. I don't know what you do now, but I always look at what people do now and what they're excited about doing in the future, and whether they want to work with children or they want to work in healthcare. But I do have a whole, it's like 2 pages of different things that I can share with you. So I'll definitely, I think we have do we have her email address, Ebony?
Yes.
Okay, great. Or we can call and have a quick conversation, Carmen. Thank you for the question. And are you finished raising those 4 kids? Because it is funny, Carmen. We have, I have 1, 2, 3, I have 4 students who have 5 children, and they stay home and homeschool them. And they all say that their kids do better in school because their mommy's right in there doing homework. And I bow to all of you. That's amazing that you can do that. But I think a lot of women do think about, okay, well, when they're gone, what am I going to do? And Carmen shares with us she's not done, because she has one who's mature and one that's still 12 years old, which is, I had that same situation. So I'd love to have a conversation with you. But I think one of the best things in the world is for a child to see their parent taking education late in life. It's a great example. And that's personal opinion, but I've seen it be very true. Any other questions? Anything
Yes.
want to
And
do?
I see a raised hand. If you could,
oh, good.
We'll allow you to talk in just a moment. There's a question that just came in. Do you need exact days of enrollment? That is holding me from completing my application because I am still waiting for my previous school to send me a transcript.
The answer to that is if you have an unofficial transcript, because I'll tell you right now, I have been worn out trying to get official transcripts because so many of the schools are working, with a skeleton crew. So if you have in your hands a copy of your unofficial, I can actually, based on, talking with individuals and just making sure they're going through the details, I usually do a PowerPoint and discuss everything. As long as it's something you want to go forward on, because we want to make sure we have the right fit for anyone who comes into our programs. But bottom line is, if you have an unofficial, I can get you going from there, and then we'll just wait on getting the other one back.
Okay, we have a raised hand. I just see the name that is you. Are you able to speak into your mic now to ask your question?
There's also another one on the chat, Ebony.
I see we have a question from Maria. Are you able to
Hello.
speak? Hi, Maria.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my question. My question I just posed in the chat.
Okay.
I don't know if that was the correct place. Please forgive me if it wasn't. My question was, where have students found the most scholarship assistance from outside Catholic organizations? Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'll answer that for you. One of the things that I feel very strongly about, because I went back for my bachelor's as an adult as well, is that little bits and pieces of monies from all over the place, because as we know right now, things are tough for people, but the American Legion is always going to be there. The a couple of the clubs that I've been involved with, the Rotary Club, the Women's Lions Club, people, and I actually just Googled some of these as far as individuals who are maybe helping people that are women to go into new careers. And these are not always religious organizations. They're just people who are supportive of women and men going into different arenas of education. And certainly I have a list of those as well. And I think a lot of it has to do with where you live, what part of the world you're in, what, city, state. But I'm always very good about brainstorming about some of those opportunities. And if I don't care if it's $1,500 or $1,000 or $25, every little bit helps. But you got to get online and you got to apply for them, and you have to network. And so there are other scholarships that are available if you just really are a hunter and a gatherer.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Maria.
All right, well, it doesn't look like there are too many more questions coming in, but as a friendly reminder, if you want to jot down Michelle's information, I see that maybe one more question just came in. Michelle?
Certainly. Yes, Patricia. Yes, and you do know about the FastTrack. That's great. And unfortunately, a lot of people are currently unemployed, and the future is a little bit shaky. And certainly, I would love to have the opportunity to speak with you, and I will give you a call after this is over. And what I usually do is just answer all your questions. Sometimes I like to send out the whole course descriptions to start out, and then we schedule about 30 minutes of a PowerPoint to make sure every detail, and we cover every aspect to make sure it calls you. And I do an interview basically to find out what is your wisdom, what are your skills that you can use already, because you never want to forget those, even when you're entering a master's degree. It's a little scary because, maybe you haven't been to school for a while, but I'm pretty good at helping people determine, oh my gosh, this would be a good avenue for me. And sometimes it's a deeply hid occupation that you wanted to do all your life. So I'll certainly give you a call and an email. Okay, Patricia? And thank you. That's a great question. You're right up there with a lot of the people that I talk to that are, a little fearful right now. But Got to go upward and onward.
All righty. Thank you, Michelle. All right, so we're going to just make sure that we're being conscious of your time. You're probably working from home, or you're probably being a great mother, or there's many other things you could be doing today, but hey, it's the end of the week. Thank you for joining today's webinar, and we'll be sending out the recording shortly. You all have a blessed weekend.
And thank you again, each of you, for your gift of time, and I hope you were able to get some information that will impact you. Thanks again, Michelle and Ebony. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.